Hello.
Hello.
Hope everyone's doing well. Okay, today we'll talk about project stuff, and I don't have a whole lot to present. The first thing I want to ask is, how are things going? Do y'all feel, now we're in the coding phase, right? You've done your problem description, you've done your design, at least your initial design. You have requirements and tests, you have user stories planned out. So now you're in the first sprint, which is going to be due 8 days from now. So do you feel comfortable that you're ready to start programming? And if not, what do we need to do?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Should we, since we have the UML diagrams, do we start working on each bit of all the classes at once, or do you think we should do the entire class of one at a time?
My recommendation has been that you create all of your classes with dummy methods so that you know that the system works, that you actually can have things that talk to each other.
Okay.
And then, based on your user stories, pick the specific methods that need to be fleshed out for the user story you're working on. Work one user story at a time until it's done.
All right.
Okay. Other questions? Come on, there we go. Let's see if I did this right. Your next deliverable, all of your code and an updated agile tracking sheet. So we'll walk through that again. You put all of it, including the agile tracking sheet, into a single zipped file and then upload it as one file. We'll have to, normally, again, when we're doing face-to-face, I literally walk around in class and you show your code to me and show me what works and what doesn't, and where you stand on your user stories. And it will be interesting to see how we accomplish that. Next week, we're going to finish up the lectures from the text, and then I'll have some recorded lectures after that. But after next week, all of these lectures will be people with issues that want to show me what's going on with their code, and also demonstrations. To upload your tracking sheet, let's see. Here's my example tracking sheet for the sheepdog game. I have user stories, and you see my first user story was just to put all of the classes present with dummy methods. So that's what I would do first. But when you filled this out initially, the goal was to do this. You don't fill out every row of this. You're going to fill out, you're only in sprint 1, so you just fill out the row for sprint 1. And you say, okay, in this sprint, I'm going to do user stories number 1 and 2. That's my goal. So I'm going to start with user story 1, work on it until it's done, and then do user story number 2. The backlog is anything that hasn't been started yet, anything you still need to do. So let's pretend when it comes time to do the P4 drop, right? That's the end of sprint 1. Pretend that I've actually completed 1 and 2. That's 5 hours of work. So I have, out of my total estimate, I had 24 hours of work. So that would be 19 hours left. So when I submit this thing, I can't remember what date it's due, it would be 19 hours of work left. Fill this in every week. So 26, that's Monday. On Monday, take a guess as to where you are. And then I think this is every Monday. Take a guess as to where you are. The goal of this is by every Monday, taking a guess as to where you are. Oh, let's define that. What do I mean by where you are? How much work do you have left to do? You never worry about how much work you did. You always think in terms of how much work do I have left to do? And if the amount of work that you have left to do, like in this case, I think I have 19 hours of work left to do, and I had hoped to only have 17 hours of work left to do, that's telling me that I'm a little bit behind schedule. If on the other hand, I say, oh, I only need 15 hours of work left to do, then I'm a little bit ahead of schedule. Let's say though, that I finished 1 and 2, then I'll go, okay, let's see, in sprint 2, I think I can devote 10 hours to the project. I'm gonna pick 10 hours worth of work. That's 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10. That's gonna get me through user stories 3 through 9. So then I would say, okay, I completed 1 and 2. I'm gonna do 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, which means my backlog is only 10, 11, and 12 at that point, because the backlog is anything that has not yet been started. And that's all I fill out for P4, because I'm just saying, here's what I intend to do for sprint number 2. You're working in sprint 1 now. When you turn in P4, that's the end of that sprint. And then you're going to plan out what you want to do for the next sprint. And again, this is to tell yourself what you're working on. Pretend I only got 3, 4, 5, and 6 done. Then I could say, okay, I still need to, at the end. So now when I do the P5 deliverable, that's the end of sprint 2. And I say, okay, I got 3, 4, 5, and 6 done. I still have to do 7, 8, and 9. And I'm going to add 10 in there. And my backlog is now just 11 and 12. This is the part that's not been started yet. Does this make sense? Are there questions about what to do in certain situations? I think I need to clarify the instructions because a lot of people filled this entire table out, but that's not the right usage of it. You fill it out as you go. By the way, you may say, oh, I started out with 12 user stories and I thought of 2 more, and you're allowed to add them. That's normal, actually, is to add items to your backlog. Some of you only turned in like 8, and I gave recommendations as to how to turn one of them into multiple ones. For example, if you are doing the dungeon crawler game and you want 5 different levels, and you had one user story that was, I want to create 5 levels, yeah, that should be 5 user stories, 1 for each level. Or if you have, zombie chase game, if you've got 3 kinds of zombies and you had 1 user story that is, I want to create 3 kinds of zombies, that's really that should be 3 user stories. Work on 1 zombie at a time. So you can see how you can reach the goal of getting 12 user stories that way. People who tended not to get 12 were thinking at too high of a level. Okay, so at the end of P4, when you're doing your P4 drop, it's going to look something like this. I completed this, and I'm only going to do 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. I still have to do, and I intend to do 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's all you need to turn in for P4 in terms of the Agile tracking sheet. And then keep track of your hours. How much effort do you still think you have to do? By the way, if you want to change your estimates, oh, I thought this was going to take 3 hours and I thought this was going to take 2 hours. They ended up being 5 hours and 5 hours. What that's telling me is, gosh, I'm a lot slower at this than I thought I was going to be. You're allowed to go through and change all these too in the future and say, okay, this is going to take me longer than I initially thought. A lot of people, I think, are underestimating their effort, which is pretty normal. So in terms of your demos, I'll try to run your code while you're online, talk to you about it, or have you run your code, show me what's going on. And if indeed you said, okay, as a developer, I want to have a functioning system for testing, might be your first one, all the classes are present with dummy methods, then you can show me that, right? You can show me your Eclipse screen that shows all the classes, and we just walk through them. Okay, all the methods are there. And then my next one was just to put stuff on the screen. Nothing happens, right? Nobody moves. They're just there. You can show me, run your code and show me your GUI, if this is your user story. What I'm unclear about as to how this works is we might do it in a breakout room where it's just so you don't have to show your code to the whole class. Or my preference is actually that you do show your code to the whole class. I think though people who are not making much progress with their code are going to be shy about that. And I would recommend that you try not to be, because you're going to get a lot of good feedback. Not just from me, from other people. And they, maybe you can reach out to them or they can reach out to you offline. What happens if you're writing your code and your UML diagram is wrong? Oh, shoot, I forgot I'm going to need an attribute for this, or I'm going to need a method I didn't think of. That's okay. Add it to your code, modify the UML. Preferably modify the UML first and then add it to your code. And that's normal. The goal with the agile development process is at the end of each sprint, you have functioning code. That doesn't mean it does everything, it functions. So if I did this, if I did my first 2 user stories where I created all my classes with dummy methods, and I created a GUI where things showed up on the screen but nothing moved, that's functioning code. The GUI shows up and the methods work even though they're giving bogus answers. If you have test cases, requirements and test cases assigned to your user stories, that would be the time to do them. Right, I wouldn't have any test cases for these. But for number three, as a player, I want to move the dog in any direction. I can have a requirement that when the user requests a change in dog direction, the dog changes 5 degrees. That might even be 2 requirements. User requests a change in direction to the left, dog changes 5 degrees to the left. User request change to the right, dog changes 5 degrees to the right, or some such number. And then I can set up test cases. Dog is at 10 degrees. Inject a change direction to the right command. Dog is now at 15 degrees. That's a test case. And it doesn't have to be user input per se. I can create methods that will run the method that changes the dog direction and then check the attribute values and convince myself that I got the correct test result. If you have test cases related to user stories, and now you do, right? You know what your P3 is, so you know if a user story has a test case, has a requirement attached to it and test cases attached to it, run them now. Don't wait till you have all your code up and running and start doing the testing. Run them now. And then you can also update your test and requirements document. You don't have to turn it in yet, but you can keep it updated so that at the end of the semester, you're not going and doing a whole bunch of catch-up work. That document's going to be done. So we're going to do this 3 times, the P4 deliverable, the P5 deliverable, the P6 deliverable. For P7, you just hand me everything. Are there questions about where we're going from here? Okay. For the 4, 5, and 6 deliverables, we're still going to do peer review. How did peer review go the first time through? I think I know the answer, but I want to hear from people.
Most people posted their stuff kind of late, so posting reviews back to it was, I mean, people didn't have a lot of time to post the
Right.
review.
Yeah, and I'm owning that because I was a little late setting up the expectations of what should be done there. What I heard was wildly inconsistent, right? So a couple of groups, people were, you know, I'm reading through the comments and people were posting code and getting good feedback. And then a couple of groups, there was only, you know, one person posted, I'm sorry, not their code, but their report. One person posted their report, but the other 2 members of the group didn't participate at all. And then that person was freaking out that I was going to give them a bad grade, which I can't do, right? I can't punish you for other people's activities or lack of activities. So it was kind of all over the place. So I think what I'm planning on now for the 4, 5, and 6 is when you turn in your P4 to me, you will also post it on a discussion board, and I'll set up discussion pages for each so that it's not time constrained. Whatever you have, the date that P4 is due is what you turn in. Oh, and by the way, nothing gets to be late in P4, 5, and 6, because what the Agile process says is when time runs out, as far as you got, that's what you got. So you upload P4 to me, but then also upload it in the discussion group. And then we'll put a time limit of, say, 2 days after the due date for people to respond. That way, whatever the people were saying you could correct in your code in the P4 deliverable, you can correct it in time for the P5. And then we'll do it again for P5, and you can correct things for the P6. And then the same thing for P6, and then you correct it for P7, which is the last deliverable. And then there's no, I'm not going to have a discussion for that. You just give it to me, and that's what it is. Does this sound reasonable?
Yeah.
Okay. If your group mates don't participate, again, they are the people that are going to get the lack of grade with that, not me. This is, they're 20 points apiece, and there's 4 of them, so that's 80 points. Well, you know, that's kind of, in my opinion, that's easy money. You know, looking through other people's work and trying to improve their product is easier than creation, usually. If you have specific elements in your code that you want looked at, I would recommend that you put that in your comments. So, you know, the discussion board goes up and you're going to post a comment with your code in it. And then in your comment, I would say, hey, I'm having trouble in this file lines 29 through 62 or whatever, you know. That's where I want you to focus. And that way, you know, if you had to look through that person's code all the way through, you know, that would be a large task. But if they're directing you to certain parts of their code, oh, I can't get this particular thing to work, you know, I can't, you know, I'm trying to create an object or reference an object in this class, line number 62, and I keep getting my null pointer exception. Can you guys see what's going on with that? And you can also make just generic style changes. if someone has a method that's 100 lines long, you're allowed to say, you know, that's an awfully big method. Maybe you should break it up, because methods really should be about 10 lines long. You know, you're trying to make that method do too much. Break it up. You're allowed to make style error comments like that. It would be helpful for you to include your UML also, so they can figure out what your design is. And I'm thinking, again, this should be a half-hour review, half-hour exercise, so that if someone's directed you to a piece of their code, you can look at their coding style overall and make a generic comment about that, and then try to help them with the specific problem they're having. If you can't see the error right off, that's a comment. I don't know. I don't see it. Don't use that as a cop-out, but that's a real comment, right? I don't know. I'm hoping a couple things happen here. I'm hoping that you do get some interaction amongst yourselves so that you start to feel comfortable that, number one, you're in a real class with real people. You're not just out there hanging alone on the internet in isolation. You really do have people around you. Number two, that becomes even a form of support. You have real people around you that you can go to ask for help. You don't have to keep banging your head against the wall. Number three, I hope you learn to be comfortable sharing your ugly code, right? I know this is no good. I know this isn't done yet. It's not where I want it to be. It's not doing what I want it to do. I kind of kludged some stuff together here, and I know it. That's okay. Be prepared to show that to people, because that's how, again, the real world works. When you're out in the real world and you're on a production project, and I don't care what form of engineering it is, you will have people looking at your work at all stages. Here's my draft of a document. Here's how I think it should be laid out. And then people will say, no, you should do this, and you should reorder things. That's normal. Showing your work before it's done so that people can give you feedback. So I'm hoping that you get comfortable with that. And then, of course, the other thing is I'm hoping that you guys can learn from each other in terms of coding techniques. You might really like the way somebody just kind of fleshed out their code. You might like the way that they laid out their methods, and wow, these are really clearly laid out. I can understand exactly what's going on. And then you can adapt that behavior to yourself. And then, of course, lastly, if everyone participates, everybody gets an improved product, improved grades, and everybody's happy with an improved grade. So that's a lot of goals for this task, right? Questions? Concerns? What problems are you having so far, other than that I haven't had all the grades back even from P2, but I'm working on it?
Is the P3 extra credit quiz on Canvas?
It should be on Canvas. Can other people answer that?
Yeah, I saw it in the to-do list.
Okay, and I think it times out because let me check. It might time out today. Maybe it timed out yesterday. I'm trying to make those really quick for two reasons. One is it's extra credit, and two, if you wait like 2 weeks and then go back and do it, you won't remember really how much time. Yeah, so this was available until October 23rd. It should be available until midnight tonight. I believe, if I remember right, every time I made a due date, I made these available for the next 2 days. Other questions? Who asked that question, by the way? And can you see it?
Yeah, I asked it. For some reason I can't see it on my Canvas.
I think I
maybe
gave
on
a.
my do.
Good night. Someone suggested that I put the link in the announcements, and I know you guys read the announcements. Yeah, there's a link right there in the week ahead announcement. Yeah, I hope you guys read the announcements regularly, or at least check to see if they're there, right?
I see it. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, like a quick check every day just to make sure there's nothing new going on. Okay. Other questions? Questions are good. We rarely have enough time for this kind of stuff where we get real-time feedback.
Is there any?
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Okay. Are there any confirmations on Dean's office hours changing?
That's a Dean question. Sorry, you have to go with that. I think
Got it.
he's asking you, right? Yeah. He's telling us he'll tell us tonight, right? Yeah, but that's a Dean question. I have had remarkably little contact with Dean. Number one, because he's so damn good at this. And number two, we're both really busy. So unless things start to go wrong, I let him just do his thing. He's graduating, by the way. So you guys will be like, oh, we were the last class that had Dean. The poor sucker that comes up next and takes his place will have to live up to the reputation. In a couple of years, it'll be one of you guys. Other questions? Someone else was trying to talk there. What did you have?
Yeah, my question is is it the same sort of way of attaching different classes to GUIs as it is when you're like doing normal inheritance?
Are you asking in terms of how to build the code out?
Yeah.
So let's go back to that then. If you look at the code examples I have online, I have all my GUI stuff in one thing, but then I do create a pane. The reason I create this separate pane class is because it's a complicated thing to build. And so I created my own class that extends the pane. And so the way I quote attach it is I actually build that pane inside the main. So if we look at them, if I look at the main GUI, got all my old stuff. That's not what I wanted. There we go. So here's my main GUI. And I build a splash pane, and then I build a border pane. Then I build a splash pane. Where is it? There it is. I build my splash pane. I build a Pirates play pane, and I do this all as attributes inside that top level GUI. Is this starting to answer the question you asked, or am I way off base here?
Yeah, no, that's working.
Okay, then these are separate, right? These are separate classes, so I build them as separate classes, but then I just make them. I make, okay, splash pane extends pane, that's my separate class, and it's a new splash pane, so I actually have that pane as an object. And then the play pane, same trick. It's a separate class, and then I create it as its own object. And then all I do is I take the splash pane, and inside that border pane, I set the splash pane in the center, so it's going to show up in the border pane. When I click the button, all I do is swap out the two panes. down here and go to play. Top pane, I set center, play pane. It's that easy to swap panes out. You just use a border pane and you use that set center method. Now, even though, where is it? Pirates play pane extends pane. That does not meet your inheritance required for the project. Your inheritance cannot be GUI related. But that's how you tie these things together. Notice now this GUI has a game manager in it, and that's how I'm moving from the view to the model. That's how I'm moving from the GUI to the actual math behind the scenes that makes the GUI do the right stuff. So I believe I know I have all this code up there. Do I have this UML up there? I think I do. It's a little bit you have a slightly different version, but it gets the idea across. Everything over here is my model, right? The ships are the model. The game manager is kind of part of the model and part of the controller. But all of this stuff, these 4 classes, they're not visible. They're all the math behind the scenes. And the only stuff that's visible are these 3 classes. So the play pane, in order for it to communicate with the stuff that's not visible, needs a communicator, a controller. And so I create one. You're allowed to create one inside the panes. That way, when I set all my methods, like for buttons, set on action, or for a timeline animation, when I say, here's the method I want you to run all the time, it's going to run methods that make the Pirates game manager manage the game, makes it do something. If I'm requesting a turn to the left or a turn to the right, then I'm telling the Pirates game manager, hey, turn the ship to the left, turn the ship to the right. And then the Pirates game manager will tell the player ship, turn yourself left or right. You can look through the code to see how that is done. Other questions? Okay, I did start, no, I think I started. Are you guys like me? It's like, I think I did this, but I'm not sure, right? All project discussions. So there's a discussion just for these, for project questions. And I'm saying, I'm recommending to you, oh shoot, I don't know how to tie the GUI to the actual model. I don't know how to tie the view to the model. I don't know how to blah, blah, blah. What a great place to ask that question. And I'm trying to get, I personally go through and just check the discussions once a day. So, you may not get immediate turnaround, but you should get within a 24-hour turnaround. And if you're saying, hey, I don't know how to do this, and you attach your code, even better. If you say, I don't know how to do this, and I think you need to look at code, class number, line number, even better. If you run and you get an error, cut and paste the error message, even better. But that way, again, you can build community with fellow students. And I encourage our graders and TAs to do the same thing I'm doing. Just check the discussions periodically. It'd be nice if y'all had your own sandbox to work on up here, but I think it would be unmanageable from a keeping track of all the different people that might need help at any point in time. I'll think about that. Okay, other questions?
So for the project, specifically the GUI, do you recommend us starting to work on that yet, or should we like work on the backbone of it and all the data control stuff first?
Yeah, that's a, there's no wrong answer. Well, we can find a wrong answer. But no, I don't see, I've seen students do both and be successful with both.
It just, to me, it kind of feels like we don't know enough about Java FX to like build our stuff on it yet. So are we going to continue to learn more about that, or what, like in the future, what do we have left to learn?
You have, based on the modules that we did with Java FX, you have enough content there to do it. And have you guys had your graphics lab yet?
I think we've had 2 labs on graphics so far.
Okay, so there's enough content there to do what you need to do. Remember, keep your GUIs nice and simple. And then from there, if you're having issues with making it, you're not sure how to lay it out, you're not sure how to start, that kind of thing, that's a good thing to ask, just ask questions on.
Okay.
But in terms of which should you do first, I've not seen a real strong thing either way. I'm kind of forcing you to do the model first in the sense that, for, you know, I think you should lay out all your classes with the dummy methods, which is primarily more effective for the model, not the view. But you can always just tack on a really an empty view, and if you know what I mean, an effectively empty view, and convince yourself that you can create the model, and then add one GUI element at a time.
Okay.
And if you don't want to do it in the context of your project, it's not a bad idea. Like you just want to learn how to make a button work, you know, okay, code it up separate from your project. Code that you're just going to throw away when you're done. And, you know, you button, you position it. Then you adapt that code so that when you do on click, you know, a pop-up screen comes up or something like that. Or then, you know, start simple. Make a circle and a button, and the circle can either be red or green, and you click the button, it turns red. You click the same button, it turns green. You know, back and forth, toggles back and forth, that kind of thing. Doing these really simple tasks helps you then, you know, do the more sophisticated stuff. More questions? Okay. Have a good weekend, and we will finish up next week with the text content. After that, I don't anticipate any more live lectures. There may be one if we, you know, if it turns out, oh gosh, a lot of students are asking the same question. Okay, great. We'll have a lecture devoted to that. But the rest will be recorded with optional content that is helpful for your project and will help you in future classes, but you are not going to be explicitly graded on that content in this class. We're at the part of the year where I like you guys just to focus on your projects. You know, I've been telling you not to code all semester, right? So I need to give you the opportunity now to really work on this stuff. Okay? Have a great one. Good to see you.